on the way I vibe when I walk into the room. Wind blows underneath the soles of my brand new pair of shoes. I got the attention. I'm on a mission.
To do a teacher training, like so much is happening, and week to week it's so weird, and all sorts of stuff is going on in people's lives. But yeah, I was like, if everyone drops out, I'm not going to take it personally, but I am not going to be the one who quits. So yes, I am persistent, if nothing else. And I want both of you guys to know how much I appreciate you and just how you guys have been so attentive and present and just interested in my ramblings. So thanks for being here. So I think that Judy is going to start us with a little meditation. Are you ready?
I'm ready. Are you guys ready?
Yes. I'm ready. Parker's ready.
All right, guys. So I'd like you to find a comfortable seat in the middle of your mat with your hands on your legs, with your palms facing up. Now close your eyes. Take a deep breath through your nose. As you exhale, notice the points of your body that are touching the earth. Feel the support of the ground beneath you. On your next inhale, imagine a brilliant white light coming down from the sky and entering through the top of your head. Breathe that beautiful light in deeper, past your throat, past your heart, past your solar plexus, until it reaches all the way down to the base of your spine. And you see yourself vibrating with this fullness of gorgeous, bright, and peaceful light. The light at the base of your spine has slowly become a bright red and pulsing light. As this red light pulses, it grows red winding roots deep into the earth. With each inhale, draw in warmth, comfort, support, and confidence up through these roots. With each exhale, release all feelings of fear, uncertainty, and anxiety. Release them down through those roots as you watch them fall far, far away, down into the earth, until you can no longer see or feel them. The roots begin to disappear, and the red light becomes even brighter. And you know with all your heart that you are exactly where you need to be in this moment. You are exactly where you need to be in this moment. When you're ready, go ahead and blink your eyes open.
Yay, are you done? I didn't want to interrupt you. Oh, Judy, that was so good.
Thank you.
Got your first thing.
Yay.
Oh, that's amazing. Thank you so much.
Oh,
thinking of the red winding roots. That was a really cool visual. I really enjoyed that. Yeah, that
Yay.
was super awesome. Since it's a teacher training, I'll give you feedback. But if I was just like a student in your class, I would be like, that's awesome. Just in terms of guiding students in breath, a lot of times when you start with, let's take a big breath in together and let it go, and then you just start talking, sometimes they like hold their breath out because they think that you're gonna like cue another inhale, and they're like, I don't want to screw up the timing of my inhales. So generally, after I do some guided breathing, I will kind of switch them into breathing on their own by telling them that. It's like, so like after you guide the breath, then you can say, continue breathing normally on your own, and then you start talking.
Okay.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Yeah, and
I don't want anyone to die.
No, you don't want anyone to die. They might hold their breath. But yeah, I think a couple more guided breaths with the first one that you did. Just because I feel like everyone needs a little bit more big breaths to kind of let go of their day and drop in a little bit.
And to settle in.
Yeah, exactly. And then the only other thing that I would say is that it sounded like your voice changed a little bit.
Ah, that's weird.
Like it didn't quite sound like Judy. Like it sounded kind of like Professor Judy.
That's hilarious.
And like it was totally a beautiful voice, and like people will love the sound of that, and if they don't know you, then they would never think it's weird. But I think that the warmth that's in your voice generally is really amazing. And if you can bring that warmth to your yoga teaching voice as well, then it's going to be really great for your students. I have one friend who I could hear her smile when she's teaching. And yeah, and it kind of makes me smile a little bit inside when she's guiding me. So yeah, you can, smile and people can hear it. But yeah, that was really amazing. Good job, Judy. I'm so proud of you.
Aw, and I'll work on those things. Thank you so much for the notes.
Yeah, absolutely. So just another note on feedback before we get into our posture breakdowns is that I saw this video this week that talked about how he called it like the Mario effect or something, like the video game. And he talked about how when people play video games, they don't get any negative like punishments. And that's why they're willing to try it over and over and over again, because they don't feel like, oh, Mario just died, I should feel awful about myself and never try this again. Right? But it's because like they actually are going to grow and they don't have any punishments for not succeeding the first time, that they're willing to try it 5 million times. So if there's ways that you can offer yourself little rewards for doing things, then I think that that's a great way to kind of learn how to not take it personally if you don't do something perfectly the very first time, right? And that's the thing about yoga and teaching yoga in general as well, is that there's no perfect yoga. I mean, maybe if you merged with enlightenment, like, yes. But like the poses and the asanas and the teaching and being a student and becoming a teacher, none of that's ever done, right? So yeah, I just want you to think of it as a journey and get excited about your own growth and not feel any fear about it. Also because, like, you guys are both amazing. And no one's judging each other here, and we all have love for each other. So, cool. So today I thought we would start getting into the posture breakdowns. And, you know, for obvious reasons, we're going to stick with the yoga for now. And then once we all get vaccinated, hopefully soon, hopefully not next December, then we can gather again and we can do more aerial stuff. Does that sound good? Cool. So if you guys want to leave yourselves unmuted for today, and I'm going to stop the music now so we can hear really well. And what posture breakdowns are is like, okay, so this is my favorite part because I get to really dig deep into like alignment and energy of each individual pose, and then all the different variations and modifications and muscles and cues and stuff like that. So we're going to use the sequence that I sent to you guys, and we're just going to go pose by pose. And how we'll start it is we will all feel the pose in our bodies, and then take some breaths there, and then I'll open it up for you to share anything that you experienced while in the pose, whether it was muscular or energetic or anything that you want to share about how the pose feels in your body. I especially want you to mention if something doesn't feel right. Like if it feels uncomfortable, or if there's any sharp or weird pains, or if it feels like maybe you're not doing something correctly. Because yeah, I think that a lot of teaching yoga is, well, doing a lot of yoga, because you have to know how it feels in your body to be able to speak to it in a way that will resonate with your students. And lots of times, like when I first started teaching yoga, I would get nervous or something because someone would look at me and I would blank, right? I would forget what I was going to say or forget what pose was next. And what kind of got me out of that, like if I was in a blank moment, I would get into the pose myself and then just talk about what I feel. And that's another way that transitions are really, in my mind, like they come a lot easier when you're thinking about like, where would I move from here? And like what makes sense to come next from this feeling in my body. And then, you know, if you're on one side, you want to make sure it's the same as the other side. But if it's just like the integration or the cool down or whatever, then you can always just like take a couple more breaths, stay in something longer, or if something feels like, oh, maybe it would feel good to go to this from here, like you can always add something in or take something out. Make sense? Okay, cool. So let's start. I want to do just child's pose to start. So come on up to your knees. And take your big toes to touch behind you. Crawl your hands forward and relax your forehead down onto the ground. Breathe in and out through your nose. And listen to that gentle oceanic sound that your breath makes. And as you're breathing, imagine that your lungs are a big balloon that fills up and expands in all directions. Allow the feeling of the earth to come up underneath you. And feel your connection with the earth. Send some of your own energy and light down through the palms. And gratitude through the breath. If it feels good, you can gently rock your forehead, relax any tension in that space. And possibly even wiggle your hips a bit, settling into that space between the thighs. And as you calm the mind, let's take 3 breaths together. Exhale any stale air out. Deep breath in. Deep breath out. 2 more in. And out. Last one, breathe in. And breathe out. And slowly crawl your hands towards you as you lift your chest. Nice, you guys. All right, does anyone have any thoughts about how it feels or anything not feel right or questions about that?
I love how that pose makes my upper back feel like stretching that out after I spend so much time like this. It just, it opens it up and feels so good.
Good, totally. Any thoughts, Karen? Or Parker?
It's supposed to be happening.
Good question. Yeah, that's a great question. So, it's the same thing that's supposed to be happening when we talk about putting your sit bones or your heels on the inside of your sit bones so that the ankles are straight and not rolly outy, right? But because of the ankle flexibility of some people, I think I've mentioned before that sometimes it feels good to roll a blanket up underneath there because they can't get their ankles all the way down. Because of the way that your knees go outward, sometimes the heels will go in a little bit, but you don't want them out. Yeah, so you want them to be in. And I think that with your feet, they tend to roll out a bit. Yeah. Yeah. And you might want to almost think about winging your feet a little bit. But, so in ballet, we have like a sickled foot when it's like in, and we have a winged foot when you try to wing it out. Sickle, wing. Yeah? So winging it is kind of pushing your heel forward and your toes back a bit. But because of your ankle flexibility, it's probably not going to feel comfortable at first. And that's why you might consider using the blanket, but it will open up over time. And that's why for Parker, I would recommend sitting with your knees together sometimes, just to stretch that out a bit. Or using the foot stretcher. And this one's going to be good for you, Parker, for also your up dogs, is just keeping your heels in and not letting them go there, and kind of stretching them here too. Yeah, let's see. That looks good. Nice. Yeah, that's much better. Does it feel like a stretch on the top of your ankle a little bit?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're gonna have to fight it for a while. Fighting a good fight. Yeah, and that's because years of rolling over your feet to up dog with your heels out is gonna really loosen these muscles on the outside. And that means that these muscles on the inside are really tight. So you have to stretch these and the top. Great questions. So I'm going to show you guys some assists in these poses, and who knows, maybe we'll like schedule a future Zoom call where like you bring a friend or your husband to like practice these on, because seeing the assists helps you understand the energetics of the pose. Yeah. So when I'm assisting someone in child's pose, oftentimes it's just a nurturing touch to help them settle and feel grounded, but you can also push a little bit. Now, when I push down, I'm going to make sure that I'm supporting myself and I'm not just like bending weird or hurting myself when I'm assisting people, but also that I do this so that they know I'm coming, so they don't like get startled. And it also kind of warms your hands up if you're like a cold hand person like I am. So I'll come over and then I'll try and watch his breath. So oftentimes while I'm teaching this and while I'm assisting, I'll be cueing the breath so that I can know when he's exhaling, because I want to press gently while he's exhaling. So I'll say, take a deep breath in and out. So I'm just pressing gently with one hand on either side of his sacrum. I do also sometimes come in with my knees and then down on the thighs. It sounds weird, but people actually really like their knees to be touched. As long as it's not in a weird way. And then before I like take my knees off, I'm gonna push down with this hand and then slowly take my knees off, and then you can lengthen the spine here. This bottom hand is kind of just securing so that there's a stretch away. You can rub the neck, all sorts of stuff. Yeah, and there's tons of different child's pose assists, but that's kind of the most general one, is just on the sacrum. So you do want to make sure that you're on the bony parts and, not their butt. How does that feel? Good? Excellent, he says. Cool. Now, in terms of the breath in child's pose, like it's not generally a pose that you flow breath to movement with, but if you did, it would be an exhale, because it's a grounding, low to the ground pose. And then in terms of the cues for child's pose, I do get some people who do it kind of wonky or like, so I always just say touch your big toes together. If you want to speak to the ankle alignment that Parker was asking about, I would start them, touch your big toes together, open your knees wide towards the edges of your mat, and then draw your heels in underneath or on the inside of your sit bones. Yeah, and then as you keep your hips heavy towards your heels, that's when you crawl your hands forward. And I don't know, I guess I really like the feeling of the way the thighs kind of receive the torso. And so like a settling in between there can feel great. So you can speak to that. I think I always say like rock your forehead or kind of nestle your hips. And the reason I do that is because it just kind of like sinks you into the ground as well. And then child's pose is a great time to talk about Ujjayi breath. Again, we've talked about like raising your hand if you don't want to be touched, and just any introduction stuff that you want to start with.
Hands if you want extra touching.
Yeah, exactly. No, I do get a lot of people, like, especially if you're teaching more advanced yogis, they love to be touched. They want you to touch them. And yeah, bringing in a question like that, like you say, raise your hand if you don't want to be touched, and no one raises their hand, then being like, raise your hand if you really want to be touched. Like, it's always good to bring in a little bit of humor, like, because some people are so serious, and some people just need to laugh too. So, and then if no one laughs, laugh at your own jokes. That's what I do. Cool. What else about child's pose? Oh, variations and yeah, I'm getting into it. Don't give me that look.
We spent 2 hours on this.
Yeah, we could. I was going to talk about the option for the shoulder cross, because this is a kind of weird option. But again, some people are so tight in their chest and armpits and shoulders that this is going to be super painful for them. So if you want to give a variation to those people, you can have them cross their arms here. So you might try that. And so my palms are up. And then you kind of rest your chin just on that top arm. Yeah? And you can try both arms on top. Mm-hmm. How's that feel? Weird?
Yeah.
If you have boobs, I don't know how that feels. I've never had them. But, well, you have boobs, don't you? Take them a little farther forward. Is it stretching here? Yeah. So it's just a variation. Like if you were doing a sequence that like you really needed length on the front of your shoulders, then you might do this. I've also done like a wide arm child's pose. So like here, cactus arms. Yeah. And I wish we had a bolster. Can you go grab one of your pillows, babe? For me? That would be awesome. Thank you. So this one is kind of like, that's not a pillow. This one is kind of like just if you need more opening, but you could also put the forehead on the block if that helped support people, and rest here. And lots of times, if someone comes up to me before class and they're like, I have severe ankle issues, like I can't do child's pose at all, I would say, excuse me, no. I would say, there's Passover. I would say, okay, well, you can do any pose that you want at the beginning of class, because the intention of child's pose is really to just breathe together and ground down. So you can stay seated or anything that you like. And this one is kind of the restorative version of child's pose, where you pull it, a bolster or pillow up to the inner thighs, and then you would have one ear to either side. Yeah. The thing about doing either looking to the left and the right, or the right arm on top or the left, is that you have to make sure that if you see anyone taking that variation, that that you tell them when it's halfway so they can switch. Yeah, so I'll be like, we'll start. You're welcome to come to your bolster or just regular. If you are looking to one direction, I will let you know when we're about halfway so you can switch. And so I let them know that. Otherwise, people get paranoid. Well, I do because I'm weird and I like to be super even on both sides about like, how do I know when to switch my head? Is you gonna remember to like do the other side too? Whereas you just want them to be able to relax and not have to worry about stuff like that. Yeah. The thing about the shoulders in child's pose is that it's, again, that kind of armpits closing down towards the ground and the biceps rolling up towards the ceiling. But if you notice, the palms are flat, right? So people are going to tend to want to do this. So instead, you have to kind of cue or energetically assist their shoulders. So what I would do there, so go ahead and let your shoulders kind of roll inward. Yeah. See how his neck, I don't know if you can see, but it scrunched up his neck a lot, and there's like no space here. So, no, they can't see that better. All right, that's good. So yeah, it scrunched up his neck, and you can't see his neck anymore. So what I would do is I would come over and I would roll these out here. Yeah, so I just went with my hands and rolled them out. Yeah, another, I like to just kind of press down, especially because if you roll them up, so if they were up here and then you rolled them, whoop, it might pop the index finger up. And so then you come back down here. And then if their shoulders go back, then you're like, ah! And then you use a foot. No, just kidding. But I like to often, if I'm touching someone to help them understand a pose, I like to verbally cue what I'm doing to them at the same time. So like, it sounds like I'm talking to the whole class, but really I'm talking to this one person, right? Like relax your neck, really long. Roll the outer armpits down towards the ground, biceps up. Press down through your index finger knuckle. Yeah. And this is just like, it feels super kind of easy if you've been doing yoga a while, but if you're brand new to yoga, this can be a chest opener, right? If you're sitting like this all day. So, yeah, just look at students' bodies and see kind of what they need to hear from you. And then also, I think sometimes people kind of put their forehead too close to them. So if you can kind of scrunch up a little bit and put your forehead closer to your knees. There you go, yeah. So what we see here is a rounded spine. And you want it to be as flat as possible because a rounded spine is not as long as it can get. You always want the most length in the spine. So then I would say, crawl your hands farther forward. Good. Maybe you could say, grab my ankles. That's a fun one. And then just creating that length. Nice. Does that feel good?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah? Cool. Oh yeah, it's if you like fall on them or something.
Doing it. No.
Oh, that felt awkward? Yeah. I know. I'm like, oh, that can't feel good. Well, I won't make you do too many misalignments because that's never good.
Well, no, it didn't hurt. It just feels unnatural.
Great. What else were you?
How much physical, like with the rotation
Mm-hmm.
that you do, like how much of it is it like restfully sitting there, and how much is it like actually muscling
Generally, it's just kind of guiding alignment and not like forcing it. So that's a really important difference.
So if I have everything flexed, is that good?
You,
Yeah.
as the student?
Yeah.
Oh. I mean, it can be either. It can be a passive pose, or it can be an active pose. Like, that's the cool thing actually about yoga, is that anything can be an active pose, because you could decide to just sit here and engage every muscle in your body and get the best workout in the world. Right? And that's what I talk about a lot in yoga, is that like you create your own resistance by creating opposition and like imagining that there's resistance against you if you want more engagement. But the sthira sukha, which is like the goal of yoga, right, is strength and ease. So in each pose you want to find a little strength, little engagement, and a little bit of ease. But as the assister, which is what I thought you were asking about, it's mainly just guiding them, not really pushing too hard. But as new teachers, we tend to be too gentle. Well, probably not Parker. But we tend to like, oh, I don't want to hurt you, you know. So if you do want to assist your students, you definitely need to try them on other people first before your students, and really get feedback from them. And maybe even try like, what does it feel like if I do more pressure? And what does it feel like if I do less? And then every time that you're going in, you ease in and you ease out, so it's never like, you know, because that's just awkward for everyone.
And you have to mean it. Like, you can't be like super soft. That's just
Creepy. Yeah, it feels like creepy fingers. They're like, what are you doing? Are you like, do you just like me, or why are you touching me like that?
you have to commit and go in.
Well, yeah, so you have to know your intention for the assist. Other questions about child's pose before we?
How does flexing the core help? And
Flexing the core will help lengthen your spine, because the core is like a little insulation for your spine that can really help it get longer. So if you're flexing your core, you know, mainly like the transverse abdominals that go all the way around, because you're obviously not wanting to like crunch, because that doesn't lengthen your spine, but like the energetic hug in of it does.
yeah, it's almost harder.
Yeah, you can make anything a core workout too. It's great. Yes, ma'am.
So, aside from, you mentioned some people might have ankle issues that wouldn't be comfortable or okay to do child's pose. Are there any other contraindications where people would be modified or go to something else?
Yeah, knees for sure. Knees for sure. Some people, you know, they can't bend their knee this much. Like their knee will only bend like this much or something. So in that case, I would have them put a bolster there, because this is going to be a less bend in my knee. If this still is too much, then I would just have them do like
Okay.
any, like whatever doesn't hurt. Don't hurt yourself, please. Especially if you have injuries, which it is good to ask as your students are checking in or signing up online or showing up to check in with your students about any injuries. Some people will be like, oh yeah, I'm pregnant. And And they'll tell you after class, and you're like,
Did all belly up.
you did all the core, all the twists. Like, so you definitely want to make sure that you check in with your students and get information like that before class. Yeah. Any other child's pose questions? Yeah. Sorry, I can't hear you.
What if somebody
I still can't hear you. Shout it out.
What if somebody in
One more time.
pregnancy?
Oh, pregnancy.
Yes.
Yeah, did you hear the last part? Oh, like, what are the modifications if they're pregnant? Yeah, okay. I know, you need a whiteboard or a microphone. General rule of thumb for pregnancy is that you don't really want to be crunching too much here, or twisting too much here, or laying like on your belly past the first trimester. Like, a couple weeks pregnant, you could probably still like feel fine here, but I generally tell people no belly up core, no deep twists, and no laying on your belly. After the, I don't know, when they're into the third trimester, the weight of the baby starts pressing on this nerve that's in your back. And so in that case, I would also say not to lay on your back. And I would build them a little, can you hand me one of those blocks? I will build them a little ramp. And then you could lay like that. That generally can feel fine for very pregnant women. Or I tell them to lay on their side for fetal position. Yeah. If you're a new teacher and you're very unsure about your pregnancy modifications and stuff like that, you could ask them and make sure that they checked in with their doctor and that they're allowed to do this. And then also say, I recommend that you go to a prenatal class first and really get clear on some of the things that you should and should not do, as well as strength that you're trying to create in your body. Because, pregnant women are going to have to do a lot in labor. So they still want to build strength and they still want to work on the pelvic floor. So they don't just want to be given restorative poses to just sit around, right? So that's why lots of times you might get pregnant women in your Vinyasa class, even though it's not a prenatal class, because they still want to work out and they know their modifications. But we can go definitely more into prenatal modifications within each pose, so that I can tell you, this is how you would modify this for pregnancy. Cool? All right. So let's go to the next pose, which this one's easy, tabletop. Let's all feel it in our bodies. Yeah, killing it. You guys are so good at yoga. You can tell people to have their toes tucked or flat, whatever makes it feel more comfortable for them. Lots of times you'll see hyperextended elbows, so you want to make sure that elbows are slightly soft. Rotate the biceps forward, press down through your index finger knuckle. Smokey, what are you meowing about? And then the cue that I kind of learned at first and that seems to work well is stack your hips over your knees and your shoulders over your wrists. You can speak to spread your fingers wide. Take your knees hip distance apart, just directly down from your hips. Nice. So maybe a little narrower, Parker, just so the your knees. Yeah. Let me see from the back. Can you stick your butt out a little more? Yeah. Curl your hands forward like a centimeter. Yeah. Okay, good. Now you can take your knees back where they were a little wider. I just couldn't see. Okay, good. So yeah, do you see what I instructed him to do was like stick his butt out a little bit? Because it was slightly rounded here. And that just tends to be from life, and life tends to pull things. So you can physically tilt their hips a tiny bit, or stick your butt out. But what we always want is a neutral spine. Right? In the curves of the spine, there's a little bit of a curve there. So if you see a totally flat back, then they're not really honoring the natural curves of their spine. And if they're doing that in tabletop, then they'll also do that in plank and all sorts of other stuff. So good to correct it in tabletop. Yeah, and then we do the wrist stretches. We won't take as long on this one. But you can do the same arm assists. Come back to tabletop for a moment. Kind of the push down into the index finger knuckle. You can rotate their biceps forward, but then, so it's like giving an Indian rug burn. It's fun. Don't actually give your students Indian rug burns. But yeah, it's here and here.
Oh, the cue about the inside of the arms.
Uh-huh.
What's that one?
Oh, turn the soft part of your elbows to face each other. Yeah, I don't really.
Because I never understand. Every time somebody cues.
Yeah, I never understood that.
I feel like I'm doing it wrong.
Yeah, because you would let it affect the whole arm, and they don't speak to the spiral. So that's why you have to rotate this forward and then this in.
This,
That's not right.
that's
That's not
not right.
right. And I think I've showed you guys this before, where you go start by bending your elbows out, then hug them under, and now straighten them. Out, under, and straighten. Which you can do in down dog as well. Yeah, I like that one. That helps me kind of understand the squeeze in of the elbows in chaturanga as well, because you'll see a lot of new students do this in chaturanga with their elbows. So if you start speaking to the elbows squeezing in towards the side bodies here, then that's already in their brain for once you get to chaturanga. But yeah, you can have toes tucked or under or flat, whatever you want. But you can, the ankles can get wonky here too. And then we'll just keep going with our wrist stretches. So I often say, if you have a favorite wrist stretch, you can go there. In this first one, when you flip the wrists to face the front of the room and your fingers back towards you, you can also tuck your toes under and pull your weight back.
Ow!
Ow! Not too hard, Judy. Nice. And then I like to actually pedal out. Aw.
Should your elbows be locked
I mean, elbows should never be locked out, but it's kind of impossible to get the full stretch when they're bent. It's a different stretch. So as long as you're not like forcing them forward, it's okay, in my opinion. And then you could try the other one that we did, which is fingers face towards the middle, palms up towards your face. If you do gently side to side, really gentle. I might even tell people to move their weight back a tiny bit so that they're not putting the full weight of their chest onto this wrist stretch, because you can overdo this one. That's a good one too. If you like are gonna do a heavy like wrist sequence, you can have them ew. That's what I call that one. Ew. But just like flop your wrists, get people to be silly. Oh, are you seeing this? Oh, it's not heavy enough of a block. Okay, ready? Serving platter, overhead, out, bring it under. Oh, so close. So as you guys both know, I think of all sorts of weird ways to warm up people's bodies. So however you want. Okay, cow. So I wrote cow-cat because it makes more sense to me to do cow first. And pretty much in all yoga classes, you do cow first. So I don't know why we call it cat-cow. But the thing about cow-cat is that the hip alignment and whether your weight is shifting forward or back. So let's try it. And come up to your tabletop. So start with stacking. Wrists right underneath your shoulders. Now drop your belly low and lift your gaze high. What happens generally here is that people will go and their weight will move back towards their heels a little bit because they're like, oh yeah, my chest is so open, and they look all the way up to the ceiling. So you want to instruct them to press their collarbones forward and wide, possibly take their weight just a little bit more towards the front of the room. And then as you round into the back, push through your hands. And this is where people tend to squeeze their butts. Is anybody squeezing their butt? No?
Did we?
Good. Good. You guys are good loose butts. That's that. But because in this position, you can really easily like, oh yeah, I'm gonna get really round. And your glutes can get involved in that, and you don't want them to. So where the power comes from is through the push of your hands. So you want kind of it to be more in the upper back than necessarily down here. And do you feel how kind of if you move your weight back towards your heels, it gets more into the butt? Whereas if you keep yourself forward over your wrists, it stretches more into the upper back. Nice. Good. And do you guys remember what breath you use on cow? Judy remembers.
Inhale for cow, exhale for cat.
Yeah, good job. Nice work. And the way that I kind of think about that is that I think of like exhaling down into the ground as I'm pushing the ground away. So you're thinking like exhale, push it away. And again, most kind of opening ones are inhales, most crunching inward ones are exhales. Questions about cow-cat? Yeah, protraction and retraction.
Like, should you be
Oh, I hate it. I hate it so much when people say to puff up the space between their shoulder blades in like plank, because that's not right. So I like this question because now I just go on my rant about it. So in yoga, we generally want the maximum space between your joints. So in this position of the chest, we want your shoulders energetically going as wide as they can in opposite directions. Now, when you protract and you push the ground away, which is what we're doing in cat, so it's not wrong in cat, then your shoulders are getting like closer, right? They're not achieving their maximum distance. And when we're in kind of protraction and letting it sink in, or retraction rather, then you get a little butt crack between your shoulder blades, and your shoulders, again, get closer together. So you can think about it as like, they're going this way or this way. And you want them that way, side to side. So a great way of kind of allowing them to feel this in their body is doing what Parker was speaking to, which is the protraction and retraction. So like retract, protract. So what it looks like in your torso is kind of sinking. If you saw the shoulders really, like they're rooted, but they're not energizing opposite directions. And then when I retract, this is what you'll hear a ton of yoga teachers speak to, and they want you to be like this in plank. Puff up the space. And I think that where that came from is it allows people to feel like they're really strongly pushing the ground away from them, which is good. But what happens is it has a ripple effect on the body. And so they start just like protracting in the upper body, but then they end up curling their butt and their hips get all thrown off in all sorts of things. But protraction and retraction can be done in plank and also forearm plank. So it is a good exercise to strengthen the serratus anterior, which is your chaturanga muscle. So it's also very good for aerial because you need that. A lot of the closing of the armpit involves the serratus as well. So you do want to strengthen it, but not doing their pose of plank, tabletop, or forearm plank to actually go for either of those extremes as a goal. Same thing with like the pelvic alignment. You know, you don't want a cheerleader butt or a cowboy butt, but you can like have them put their hands on their hips and feel the opposite extremes so that then they can find where neutral is in between those two. Yeah. Cool. Questions about more table-y stuff? Awesome. All right, well, let's go to thread the needle. Who remembers, oh, I wrote it on the thing. I was gonna be like, who remembers what arm up first? And like, I wrote it on the thing. So you're gonna do your left arm up first. So I'll cue you through it, and then we'll talk more about it. Start in your tabletop. Lift your left arm up high. Circle your wrist a couple of times, both directions. Stay for one more big breath in, reach up. Exhale, thread the needle, left arm underneath your right. Place your left cheek onto the mat. And keep your hips level and square. And find this twist from the mid to upper back. Take some deep breaths here. Option to keep your right hand where it is, or to crawl it forward and over to the left. You could also take a half bind with your right arm behind your back if that feels good. Nice. And if you are taking that half bind in your arm, the goal is to wiggle your fingertips towards the left hip crease as an anchor point. Good, you guys. Let's take one more big breath here. Place your right hand back close to your face. Inhale to unthread the needle, left arm back high. And return to tabletop position. Nice. Other side, inhale, lift your right arm high. Circle your wrist a couple of times in both directions. One more deep breath in, reach, reach, reach. Exhale, thread underneath the left arm. Level out your hips. Sometimes it can help to reach back with the left hand and just check that the hips feel level. An option for your arm variation. You might crawl the left hand forward and slightly over to the right. Or sweep it behind you for a half bind. This time wiggling towards the right hip crease. Aim for maximum length in your spine. Good. One more big breath. Return your left hand back close to your face to ground. And inhale to unthread your needle. Lift your right arm high. Good, nice, you guys. And you can relax now. So something to note about when you lift the one arm high is that this is already going to throw my hips off. Because like, okay, my hips are level, right? And then I go like this, and then it already is like throwing my hips off. And then they're going to be like over twisted back. Right, so that's why sometimes I do cue this to crawl the hand slightly forward first, because it can help balance you so that the hips don't have to really get into that first lift. Or you could just lift it out to the side. That's totally fine. And then under. Yeah, it doesn't have to be that. I think a lot of people, it feels good to like stretch across their chest, but just make sure you're looking at their hips. Let's see what Parker's hips look like in this.
Tight.
Tight. Nice. Good. Nice job. So generally, if he's twisting to the left hip will want to go up a little bit. So I'll gently pull it back. Yeah, that's straight. Does it feel like not straight? It felt straight before. And that's the thing about this one is like, you think that you're totally square and you can't feel it in your body. So your students might actually really need you to tell them like if their hips are square or not. Because yeah, that feels not straight to him when it's straight. And show me what you were doing before. Yeah. So his butt will wiggle that way. And then we went here. What I am seeing now from this angle is that he could take his cheek another inch forward. And same thing with this arm. So like come back up. Yeah, there you go. There we go. And that's the sweet spot, right? Where you want to get maximum length in the spine, but you don't want your hips to move forward so that they're not stacked over your knees anymore. What you'll see most often is that they're too close to their knees and they're not lengthening as much as they can. Also, it can be kind of like puppy dog pose. If you go too far, it can be really challenging to get out. So, not necessarily cueing them into kind of like the maximum of where the body can go, but where it's going to find a sweet spot for them that they're able to twist. And this on this side, the right hip wants to go forward. Whoop. Well, your feet. There we go. That looks good. So his spine is long. There's a tiny bit of rounding here. Yeah, but he just corrected that a bit. And just in general, people that work on computers all day long are just going to have a little bit of rounding there. And I mean, that's also part of the natural curvature of the spine, is this way, then this way. But yeah, that's why we do yoga, because we want length, but to also honor those curves. How's that feel? Good? Your hips look good now. And again, what the arm variation of forward and over to the left will do is kind of just open his chest and allow him to twist a little deeper. And then, do you want to show him the leg variation?
Not really.
I'll show it. So, maybe if I'll show you. So from and anything like that, left leg, that's the variation that people do. And the reason they do it is mostly to show off. But also for a balance challenge. It can challenge your balance. I wouldn't cue beginners into this, because what can happen is that it can open the hip and then they roll on their neck. Like whenever there's a chance of like,
The point of contact is your head.
yeah, whenever your head is like weight supporting, then I would be careful. Because the neck, yeah, that's important. Necks are important. Nice. Yeah, so just square that hip down a little more. Yeah. Beautiful. So a cue for the hip is rotate the outer hip down and the inner thigh up, similar to, bicep forward, forearm in. Cool. But thread the needle, it's just a good twist and something that lots of people tend to be familiar with. Questions? The threading of the needles. What I was talking about with going too far with puppy pose is like, if I'm here, so I want to keep my hips over my knees and stretch my chest, but if I'm like, oh, I'm so close, and then I go here, and then I'm stuck, right? And to get back, it's hard. It's the same thing if I'm threading my needle way out here. It's gonna be a struggle to get back. So that's why you want to keep your hips over your knees. Yeah, puppy pose is great. Let's all do puppy pose. Yes, Judy?
Does anyone have have to modify that one for physical limitations, like shoulder injury or?
Almost no one can get their chest in. Everyone just has their forehead to the ground.
Oh, in puppy pose?
Yeah.
Or thread the needle?
Well, both actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, typically, I haven't actually heard anybody do it properly to be down on the chest in years.
Oh yeah, because no one can do it. Well, and so how I'll cue it is keep your hips over your knees, crawl your hands out, and melt down your chest. But keep a slight engagement in your core, and the forehead can be down or the chin, if that feels good. But yeah, people in general, it looks a lot like, it looks like a child's pose gone wrong.
Which is also, like, usually when I see that, they're actually putting like force on the neck and the head.
Oh yeah.
And it's like, just don't.
So in a beginner class, what I would do is I would tell them, we're gonna do a modification of puppy pose, where we'll take your forearms onto the block, keep your hips right over your knees, and then melt your chest towards the ground. And that will just like give them a little extra support, or even under the forehead.
You should have a cue thing for each one and how to deal with the hardcore intermediate where they know enough to be dangerous. Yeah.
Oh yeah, where they're trying all the variations that you didn't cue.
Yeah. And doing it so super.
Yeah.
Full of themselves.
Yeah, that's the thing. You just want to keep your eye out for anything that could be dangerous. But to answer your question, yes, there in every single pose, there will be someone that maybe can't do it because of physical limitations. And you just want to cue, that's why we use transition cues to kind of get the most general shape. And then we refine the cues smaller from there. So there's always ways to use props, bolsters, straps, but just use your best judgment. So for a modification for thread the needle, most people, same as puppy dog pose, are just gonna be kind of here. So their shoulder isn't even like on the ground, it's just a little bit of a twist. And that's because their muscles are really tight, and that's totally fine. So it's better to see someone not going all the way into a pose than like going into it wrong, you know? And that's like the same thing with chaturanga. I tell people, you don't have to go all the way down halfway. You can just start with bending your elbows a little bit. Yeah.
Maybe this teaching puppy pose, forehead on the ground, and then this cueing.
Looking
to
side
roll
to
the
side?
neck.
Ooh, that's not
I think I say it under my breath, I'm like, don't do that, don't nobody do that.
right? This thread the needle is not what I would consider a deep twist. So I would say that it could be okay for pregnancy as long as it's comfortable, because it's kind of like these vertical twists that we do. Yeah, we had too much holiday cookies. It's not twisting in the middle of the belly. Yeah, deep twists are really going to crunch in that space. But if you had someone who they couldn't, like their knees hurt, their ankles hurt, their wrists, like they can't do any of it, you could tell them, you know, just to do a seated twist while everyone else does the thread the needle. Yeah. Cool. All right, we're moving on, unless you have more questions. All right. Where are we at? Toes pose. toes pose. So let's try it together. Come to tabletop position. Tuck your toes underneath, hips distance apart, and take a seat back onto your heels. This can be very uncomfortable for a lot of people. If you need to come out, you're welcome to come out at any time, but note that using your breath and feeling into that opening can help open up the fascia in your feet. You can also kind of use a block on either side to take a little bit of that weight off of the feet. What you do want to make sure of is that you tuck that pinky toe in there because it loves to escape. And keep your heels kind of in towards the inside of your sit bones. And then when you're done, give your feet a little tap. Tap really. Kitty, I saw a cat.
Lumpy.
Cool. So in the sequence, although I didn't make you do it now, I put option for a chest expansion here. But what you will see there is this of the shoulders. So you might have to cue to that. And then I also option for side to side. I like to do this little if you see, yeah, that's a good one. If you see what this right hand is doing, it's going to punch this forward, which in turn pulls more length down this side shoulder and kind of opens that shoulder head. So I'm kind of punching it forward with my right elbow squeezing back, and then punching my left fist forward and squeezing that elbow back. And then you can take your neck, move the chin. Yeah, so that's just one of the neck stretches that I found I liked in my body. But you can cue to whatever neck stretch works, or even just tell people, option to stay right here, focus on your breath, or play with a little chest expansion, or stretching your neck side to side, and then they'll do whatever it is they do. If you do a neck stretch, let's try this. So take this comfortable seat, take your left hand to your right ear, take a breath in, and then drop your left ear towards your left shoulder. Now send your right arm out to the side, flex your fingers back towards you, take a breath in. Exhale, slowly press the heel of your hand down and out. And then just hold that. To get up from this one, I like to take the left hand to support your head and then bring it back up. Nice. Let's try the other one. Right hand across to the left ear, breathe in. And exhale, stretch. And send that left arm out to the side, flex your fingers back, breathe in. Exhale, push down through the heel of your hand. Oh, so nice. And keep breathing. Last one. Oh, that's interesting. Parker does figure eights. To get back up, use your hands to assist your head back to center. Does that feel good? Cool. Nice. Questions about toes pose? So again, it's about the fascia in the feet and being able to connect to the ground more once you open them. Also, a lot of people wear shoes all day, every day, I don't know what these people do. But if you're always in shoes, then you might really need that opening in your feet. Cool. And then we did, just to counter that and stretch the tops of the ankles, we did I said tippy toe stretch. So you could do one of two things. You could do either crawl your hands out a little bit. We can try this together if you want. So from tabletop, you would just crawl your hands 1 or 2 palm prints forward, squeeze your heels inward, press through the tops of your toes, pull your core in, and just lift your hips a couple of times. Just stretch the tops of your feet. Ensure that the heels do not roll out. Mm-hmm.
That's
And
a
the
good
other-
tummy stretch.
Oh yeah, cool. The other one that I do is heels inside your sit bones. This might be enough stretch for your feet. Stay here if it is. If you want more, lift one knee up. Keep the other heel in. Yeah, we've done this one before. This is the one Parker should do every day. Let me see your foot. Oh, it's doing it! No, you gotta resist it! Can you take your feet a little wider? There you go. That's better. I would just sit there. It hurts so bad. Like a stretchy hurt? Yeah. Okay, that's the good kind of hurt. That's the kind of hurt we like. Weakness leaving the body. Let me show. I showed you guys this, right? This foot stretcher? Ah. Because what it does is it squeezes that, and then you straighten it out, and then I can make sure that my heel is going that way and my toes are going that way, because same as everything else, it's going to want to sickle. So you can even kind of like push up, get those pretty ballerina feet. It is. But yeah, these things come in handy if you wanted to stretch your ankles a little bit more. More questions about toes and stuff? I had one yoga class where she had us like doing all these different like foot massages, and that was kind of cool. Or a calf squishing. There's so much stuff you could do. But we're gonna stick to this sequence. So after your tippy toe stretch, I put down dog, but actually what you should put in between there is a plank pose. Because while you could probably roll over your toes from the tippy toe stretch, your down dog probably wouldn't be the right length. Do you guys remember what length it should be? It's okay. Same length as your plank. So hands and feet want to be in the same place as your down dog. However, brand new students will probably have to walk their feet in a little bit, or they're going to feel like they're slipping. So let's try it. Let's start in plank. Find that natural curvature of your spine, a little tilt forward of your pelvis here. Yeah. Good, broad across your shoulders, breathe in. Exhale, downward dog, send your hips high. Try to keep your hands and feet where they are. Nice. And if you have to walk them slightly forward, that's okay. Just know that you're, what? Then you have failed and never do yoga. From down dog, pedal out through your heels. Good. Nice, you guys. And let's try shift back forward to your plank pose. You kind of round through the upper back as you do that. And then exhale, return to your down dog. Lead with the hips. Let's do 2 more. Inhale, round forward to plank. Exhale, down dog. Last one. Inhale to plank. Exhale, down dog. Nice. And you can come down to a seat whenever you're ready. Initial thoughts about plank to down dog transition?
Feels good.
Yeah. Why'd you laugh? Because you had to move your feet? Good job. You win. You won yoga.
Yoga.
Another way that you'll often see that's done in yoga classes is you'll see inhale, lift your heels high. Exhale, hover your knees low. Inhale, forward to plank. Exhale, down dog. So I see that done a lot. The reason that I don't like it as much is because people tend to do this instead of this. Do you see the difference? So the goal is to have that press through your hands to keep length all the way down your side bodies and get your hips as high as they can go. So yeah, that's why I try to kind of just here and really get the press through the hands. But it's not wrong to do that. It looks better. Yeah. And it kind of reminds me of like cow-cat a little bit, where you're like almost like cat to move forward and like cow to move back. There's so much to talk about with down dog. There's so much. Oh yeah, on down dog. Well, let's start with Parker's down dog. And let's pick on him some more. I told him, I'm like, you're my only body, so I'm gonna have to pick on you a little. And come back to plank. You look too far forward. Take your toes farther back. Yep. He said no. You can't disagree with your yoga teacher. Trying to get this flatter by broadening. Nice. That's pretty good. Now down dog, lead with your butt. Nice. So same thing as tabletop, plank all of it. Press, index finger knuckles here. If I see like a no neck, a scrunch neck, that's how I know that they're not wrapping down here. And what wrapping around here does is it allows you to get all of this length up, 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 and back. So that's going to give you a lot more power and allow you to achieve higher hips and a longer spine. What? No, you can't. Wait, are we going to do this time? We'll talk more and then we'll make him do it again. So when I first started yoga, I was flexible already because I was a dancer. So I was like, oh, this feels way better, right? And like sank
I'm like, am I doing it right?
No, I was not. And the reason I didn't like my feet that far out is because it felt like I was sliding, and I started yoga doing hot yoga as well. So like I was slipping all over my mat, and I had like some cheap Target mat or something, and I wasn't understanding that there's a press out with your hands, but there's also a pull in. So as I'm pressing out through my hands, I'm also anchoring it with my core so that I'm not just here. So you want to think about the whole torso really strong as a unit from your fingertips to your hips. And then a lot of people with tight hamstrings will not be able to achieve the proper pelvic alignment here because their hamstrings are pulling their butt. They're tight. So what I tell those people to do is to bend their knees, and then I do the same thing that I did in tabletop, which is a little stick the butt out here. There's a lot of assists, but just I don't ever do this assist on people, especially men, but I want you to see like the alignment. So we call it the gynecologist.
Jesus.
And you rotate the inner thighs back. Right? And so I cross my arms and I'm pulling back. And I just want you to see how that's the goal of it, is to take your inner thighs back, and in turn, when I move the inner thighs back, it also opens up that space in the pelvis.
Just to be clear, if you do that to another person, that's cheating.
Especially a guy. But yeah, so you can just cue to that, you don't have to do it. But you could say, rotate your inner thighs back to allow more freedom to tilt your pelvis forward. You can also bend your knees here as much as you need to get the most length in your spine and height out of your hips. But people also assist from the front, or the butt grab. The butt grab's my favorite. Is that cheating? One more time, Parker. One more time.
I hate to say it, but that other one really was maybe the best down.
It was a great assist. He loved it.
Like, I've never really felt my legs go that way before.
Breathe in and out. So I'm squeezing his outer thighs in, and I'm like leaning. He's a big guy, so I'm like leaning a lot. I lift my feet off the ground. But I'm pushing my feet forward to kind of and I try to get like around the hips, so my fingers wrap around the waist, and then I just lean. How's that feel? He can't feel me. He likes the gynecologist better. I do eat cheeseburgers. My butt's getting flat. But the goal is to like lengthen energies of line that way, and then also kind of pushing down through your hands, so opposite waist. Yeah? Oh, and then you might try here doing the same elbow thing. So from your down dog, you can bend the elbows a little bit to the side, squeeze them under towards your chest, and then press the elbows straight. And that's just going to help with the shoulders and all that messiness, right? Mm-hmm. How does down dog feel in your bodies? Do you guys feel like you're slipping? Has it gotten easier, harder?
Definitely easier, and definitely easier as the class goes along. Like my heels will go closer and closer to the ground.
Totally. Yeah. And yeah, I don't think that the heels necessarily have to be on the ground to be doing it correctly. But it does help you feel more grounded in the pose. For sure.
Doing it, bending the knees, like even when I was like full, my hamstrings are open.
Yeah.
I was still always would help me get deeper and like loosen up the hip and then loosen up like pieces of the back.
Oh yeah. And that's why a lot of teachers cue the pedaling out of your heels. Or also just like bending your knees and straightening them. I also see a lot of like lift up, drop your heels to one side, and then the other. And this gives me a nice stretch down the opposite side body of the way that my heels are going. There's one teacher that will cue a lot of like lifting and kind of balancing here, and that can help you find your center. Cool. But yeah, there's lots about down dog that we could go into, but we'll just keep moving on for now, and then talk about more things with down dog as they come up for you. Do you guys have any questions that are happening right now in your brains? No? Okay. What time is it? Oh, got it. Okay. We'll just do a couple more, and then we will call it a night. And I think Karen is going to close us with a little meditation. So from down dog, I have ragdoll, and you can really either crawl your hands back towards your feet or crawl your feet forward towards your hands. So let's try both and see how they feel different in your bodies. So from your down dog, take a deep breath in, breath out. Look forward and gently tiptoe your feet towards your hands. Arrive in ragdoll position. Hands to opposite elbow. Shake out your head. No and yes. Shift your weight slightly forward towards your toes. You can bend your knees here. Take a deep breath in and out. Place your hands back onto the ground, shoulder distance. Crawl your feet back to downward facing dog. Take one breath here in and out. Crawl your hands back towards your feet this time. And find your ragdoll here. Shake out your head. Anything that feels good. Sometimes I like hands on the back of my neck just to add some extra weight. And lengthen out back of my neck. And slowly release your hands to the ground. And come back down to a seat. Thanks, you guys. Which one felt better?
Walking forward.
Forward.
I like the cue of the lots of little steps.
Yeah. That helps you get your hips up.
And like at the beginning of like the first time through that, like, just opens up.
Baby steps. Yeah. Cool. Yeah, I tend to like crawling the hands or crawling the feet forward as well, just because it feels I'm more used to it because that's what everyone teaches. But it also is the more traditional way of like getting back to your chaturanga and stuff. Because if you think about it, if you're crawling your hands back and then you're doing your sun A and then you do halfway lift, like it's weird to do chaturanga from here, right? So if I was doing this, I would be inhale, halfway lift, exhale, tuck and curl into a little ball, inhale, crawl forward to plank position, and then do chaturanga. Which can be kind of fun to like get this because this is like a turning inward and compression. And then this is also a core challenge to crawl the hands out. So you could always do that if you were preferring to go to the back instead of the front of your mat. But ragdoll in general is about teaching the body to shift forward in forward folds, which I know we've talked about quite a bit. So definitely you want to cue to the heaviness, like if it was a flowing pose, it would be an exhale. But you could also do like sunflowers from here. Have you ever heard of those? So the sunflowers are when you go like, yeah. And then that's kind of fun. And that kind of loosens up the body a little bit. But it can be really hard to cue. unless they've done sunflowers before and then they would know right away. But yeah, I think that you're gonna have to speak to beginners a lot about bending their knees. Otherwise the weight's gonna go back. And heaviness through the top of your head. And that's why I do the shaking of your head, because it helps your head feel heavy and creates more length in your spine. Because when you think about it, the spine isn't getting as much length as it can when you're here. But then when you shift forward, then it really spills it down. And you can say cues like, imagine your day dripping off your spine, off the top of your head, or let any anxiety kind of drip right through the crown. You can speak to tilt your pelvic bowl forward. When you call it a bowl, sometimes that helps because they think of like spilling it forward or back. And you can talk to relax your jaw, your forehead, anything like that. But it's just a great pose to get that initial alignment of the forward fold while you're still moving slow and warming up the body. One thing I would note about a kind of variation of this, which is gorilla pose, is that gorilla pose is more about compression of the organs than it is about really cranking yourself into a forward fold. So it's similar to ragdoll, but you say slide one palm underneath at a time, toes all the way to your wrist creases. You can gently wiggle them for a little wrist massage. Try to keep your weight forward though, bend your knees, and compress your internal organs against your thighs, which is like a hug for your organs, an organ hug. And what you'll see in gorilla is that people are like looking up, so you want their head to be heavy, and you can even deepen by telling them to bend their elbows a little to the sides. You do want them to be careful though, of like fully putting all of their weight on their wrists if they have wrist issues or, and that's why I do one at a time. Yeah, I've fallen headstand before, it was funny.
Cool. Let's just finish out this integration set. So we could say we did a whole sequence set. And let's just do Tadasana. So let's all go back to our ragdoll. You could be in the middle of your mat, wherever you want. From your ragdoll, toe heel your feet about hips distance apart. If they're not already, you can measure that by placing one fist distance between the inner arches. And release your hands down to the ground. Look in towards your belly button and slowly roll up one vertebra at a time all the way to standing. Good. And reach your arms up high. Tilt this up a little bit. There we go. Nice. Beautiful. And while you're here, close your eyes. Grow your roots through your feet. You can bend and straighten your knees a little bit if that helps you ground. And anchor through the belly button and lengthen through the top of your head. Reach your fingertips high and roll the pinky fingers slightly inward. That will help drop your shoulders down away from your ears. Beautiful. Good. Knit the lowest ribs gently together. Take a deep breath in. And hands to heart center, Samasthiti. Pause here. Tuck your chin just gently to either gaze past your fingertips or close your eyes. And feel the beat of your own heart, becoming present inside of this moment. Take one more deep breath in. Let it go. Inhale, sweep your arms up high, Tadasana, mountain pose. Exhale, forward folds. Good, you guys. Halfway lift, inhale. Exhale, tuck and curl into a little ball. And come down to a seat. Yeah. Nice, you guys. How did that feel? Good. Did I make you guys try? I feel like I might have made Judy try, but I don't know if I made you guys try the forward fold with your butt against the wall. But that's how you can really see that you're not shifting your heels back too much. Because it's one thing to be in ragdoll and kind of over it, but when you transition from standing to folding, that's when the weight back actually happens. So you would start like a few inches from the wall because we have butts, but then as you go, you can kind of feel the wall keeping your weight forward. Yeah. But Tadasana, it's kind of the blueprint posture of all postures, right? Because we talk about alignment, and this pose is like a line, right? So it's the neutral pelvis, it's the gentle rib cage squeeze in, core engagement, length through your spine, shoulders broad, but closing the armpits, thumbs back. Yeah? And it's trying to find kind of the neutral, most comfortable, aligned place of your body, because then you're going to find that same alignment in so many other poses. So it's a really important one to make sure that you're looking at their bodies and letting them know where to fix it. And yeah, it can be a peak pose. It can be a great peak pose. We can go into more as we do Sun A. Parker tells me we're not meeting next week because we have to break for the holidays. So you guys can have a break and then we can reconvene in January.
But when we do Sun A again, we can talk more about Tadasana as well as the transitions in and out of it. But yeah, I also wanted to touch base with you guys over the break if you want to, because I know it's a small group and I really just want to kind of chat with you guys each one-on-one about where you're at and what you are wanting for the rest of the teacher training, as well as giving you some opportunities to like practice while we're not recording it, because I don't know if that makes you nervous or not.
We're recording this.
Shut up, Parker. He doesn't even know he's all over YouTube. But so I made a link that I'm going to send you guys, and it's for a 1 hour private lesson on Zoom with me, and it doesn't have to be anything other than us chatting about Christmas cookies. Like, I don't care. But I just want to give you guys an opportunity to touch base, so I'll send you guys that link, and you can just schedule it, and it'll sync with my calendar, and then we can meet and hang out. Sound good? Cool. All right, well, let's go ahead and let Karen close us. So take it away. If we could hear you, I don't know.
With us. With us.
No, just be quiet.
Okay, so we're gonna do the root chakra. So to connect with the root chakra, we want to be connected to the ground. So let's start in the position. You can cross your legs if you like. Just make sure your shoulders are back and your spine is straight.
Can you get maybe even a little closer to the... I'm sorry.
Can you hear me better now?
Oh yeah, that's better. Thank you.
Should I start over?
No, you can keep going. We're good. We're seated.
Make sure you relax your muscles. Close your eyes and breathe. In through your nose and out through your mouth. Bring your attention to the location of the root chakra, right below your head. Notice any tingles in that area and feel the ground underneath you, supporting your body. The red light is warm and soothing. Keep breathing. As you exhale, feel your feet, legs, pelvis releasing into the ground beneath you. Feel your spine getting lighter. When you're ready, slowly open your eyes and notice how your spine is relaxed and how it feels good. Open your eyes. That was it.
Yay! Good job! That was amazing. Thank you so much. I loved that. Just really bringing attention to like how you're seated and the length of the spine and kind of anchoring you down. Yeah, like all I would say is I couldn't hear you very well, but that's not your fault. I think that's your computer's fault. But I think that you were talking at a reasonable volume. I tend to speak at too loud of a volume. But similar to kind of what I mentioned with Judy is just finding that kind of sweet, kind of nurturing tone, and that is just going to come with getting more comfortable with speaking to students. Because as you get more comfortable speaking to them, then it feels less like you performing something, and it feels more like you just being yourself, right? And then I would encourage both of you to kind of, I don't know, research other things about the root chakra too that might resonate with you. And you could even bring in a, not necessarily like a whole personal story, but just something that you've experienced with the root chakra, whether that's a sense of it feels out of balance because I have felt anxiety about safety, or just kind of bringing it in to add in whatever other level and your own experience from your life can offer to your students. But great job, I'm so proud of you. 2 little baby birds jumping off the nest. Parker will do one in the new year, maybe. And if he doesn't, then he's still allowed to come because he lives here. So, but I thought that was awesome, you guys. I'm so proud, and I'm so excited that you guys are still interested in becoming teachers, because it's really such a great thing that you can offer to people in this time. So I will send you the link right after this so I don't forget. And have a great break, you guys. We will meet again on the first Wednesday of January.
Okay, have a good break, you guys. Thank you so much, Katie, for everything.
Oh, thank you. Namaste.